Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the weekly Daily podcast. It's a nice fall, chilly day today. A little drizzle outside. It's what is today? Monday, November. Whoa, it is not November. It's Monday, September 11th. It's a sad day in our United States of America history. A day to remember the bad things that have happened in our country. They say, I don't want to make jokes about it. It's not a joke-worthy topic, but never forget. Uh, when there is a bad tragedy, what better time to forget, You're like, let's not remember all the bad things obviously, you honor, you don't want to forget because you don't want it to happen again. You want to respect. But it's like, I'd like to forget, you know? You got some stuff, you get you get beat up, you get, got some bad memories in your life, a bad breakup. You go, I'd like to forget. I don't want to. Could you imagine that? If you're like in therapy for like the worst breakup of your life, and it's just like, it's so horrible. You have nightmares about it. And your therapist is like, never forget. Never forget that day that girl broke up with you and she broke your heart. You never forget that. All right, this is a weird way to start the podcast out. It's the 22nd anniversary, and I just want, I felt like by stating the date, I needed to mention it. But we're having a good time being here. It's a little drizzly day. I do remember that day. Everybody talks about, they're like, where were you when 9/11 happened? I remember I was in 8th grade. I was in Mr. Weber's class at Forest Middle School. And it was like second period where we found out it was like a weird flex period where it wasn't an actual course. I don't even know what they called it. It was like a study hall, but they made you do things. I think half the time it was study, half the time it was like they'd try to get you to do stuff. I don't remember anything from that class. He was the math teacher, but it wasn't math class. The only thing I remember out of that class for the full year during that flex period was, one, we made or attempted to make bridges out of balsa wood to see what could hold the most weight. And two, we did a little project experiment thing with one piece of construction paper to see who could make like little pegs or like little columns or podiums or whatever. You had to make it into like 4 spots to see what could hold up the most books. And I think I won that. I think I was a little construction paper engineer, That's where I peaked. 8th grade. They're like, this is not relevant to anything you'll ever do in life. You did good at it. It's not relevant to anything, okay? And once things started getting relevant, I was like, I don't know how to apply engineering or science to solve problems. But, if you give me one piece of construction paper and, want me to like hold some weight on it, pretty good at it. Pretty good at that. But I remember, that was I was in Virginia, and so East Coast. It was second period, and I just vaguely remember being in there. I don't remember like the announcement. I think they brought a TV in, that might have shown the second tower, which as a kid, honestly, it was like so crazy. It almost like goes over your head as a kid, or probably for sure does, because you're just like, I don't know. You're like, this is wild, but I collect Pokemon cards. I don't like the edges of reality and science fiction and just like movie. Like, I remember I knew it was real because this is when I knew it was really real. Later that day when I went home and my parents just had the news on and were watching it, and the news was showing like a live clip of it from earlier, and they didn't bleep out some pretty aggressive cursing from somebody who saw it and was like, holy beep and beep, but they didn't beep it. And they said that, and my parents were in the room, and my parents did not look at me or the other children to go, oh, like earmuffs, like you can't say that. They just were like so shocked in it. And that's when I knew. I was like, oh, this is bad. Because a curse word was said, and it was not immediately addressed as something I can never say again. Anyways, I just said I was not going to start out on a bummer, and I kind of went just further down into, you know what? United States of America. You see this? Red, white, and blue. That's not the color of this, but there is red and blue. And I could probably color grade it to have some white in there. The wall is white. There you go. United States of America. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. It's other than that though, it is September 11th, but the summer is definitely winding down. It's cooler. I've been out of town. I'm glad to be back home. It's been a chaotic last week, a fun last week, just busy, and been in Montana. A little chillier up there. Really being up there, honestly, was like that's when my brain started feeling the changing of the seasons. It was cooler up there, some rain up there, and then came back yesterday. It was raining here in Denver. It's like overcast and drizzling today. I mean, it's very much like we're going into the fall season, which I'm not a huge fan of. Historically, a lot of people like fall. They're like cooler temperatures, Halloween, it's pumpkin spice season, whatever people say about it. I don't know that I've always hated fall that much, but I like summer, I like spring. My brain struggles and it goes into kind of like bummed out mode for a couple weeks as we go into these seasons. But also, when I got sick with Lyme disease like 10, 15 years ago, it happened in fall. And I think my brain still like connects to the horrors of that period. And you know what? Maybe that's not fair to you, fall, okay? But what can I do? Never forget, okay? Call back. Never forget Lyme disease. That's something I wish, I could. I should go to a therapist. They'll be like, forget it. And then just Men in Black blank my brain out. And then I'm just like, yo, what's up? I'm Will Smith. I hang out with aliens. And then I slap Martin Lawrence. And then, wow. I'm all over the place, guys. I had some hamburger for lunch. I did. It was good to have a nice lunch while I was up in Montana. So I'll tell you guys about the Montana trip. It was very fun. I went up to Montana for a comedy festival at Last Best Comedy in Bozeman, Montana. It was a very fun festival. A lot of very cool people. A lot of very funny comics. Small, it's I don't know how big the city is, but it's probably 30, 40, 50,000 at most probably. So it's a very small scene, but it's like a very supportive, fun scene, and people are there to laugh, to have a good time. And I went up a week early because I had to, I don't have any PTO days. So I had to work while I was there. So I drove up last Sunday, and it's a 10-hour drive. Pretty long drive. And the drive is basically just 25 north, which is just straight through Fort Collins, straight through Wyoming, and then like in about 7 hours you get to Billings, and then you have to go west like 3 hours to get to Bozeman. And the drive was okay. 10 hours, that's a long time. I'm getting more and more used to some of these pretty long drives the more I've gotten the opportunity to travel and do some work on the road with comedy. So it's getting easier, but it's still, it's a long trip. And so I had mentioned that, I think in the last podcast, that I bought Dune, the audiobook, to listen to. And it was like $35. It was very expensive. And it was 21 hours of audio. And in my brain, I go, 10 hours up, 10 hours back. I'll be pretty much done. Well, you know what? I listened to 3 hours on the way up, and that felt like a lot. It's one of those things where I remember doing the same thing with Spanish before moving to Central America for a year. I was like, I'll just like watch everything in Spanish. I'll watch Spanish TV shows, movies. I'll just convert my brain to Spanish a month before moving to Central America, and I'll just be like fluent and ready to go. And I'll tell you what, I felt the same way. Like, you try to do that, you get like 20 minutes into the day, and you're like, I'm exhausted from trying to focus this hard. You're like, how did I possibly think I was going to do this all day, every day for 30 days in a row? That's how I felt with Dune. Very good, it's enjoyable to listen. I feel like the audiobook has some music, different characters and stuff. But, it's like one of those things where a podcast, you can kind of like listen, not listen. You can kind of phase in and out, daydream, and kind of get the gist of it or not. It doesn't matter because people are kind of just talking. But with a book, it's like I probably need to kind of focus in to understand all the characters and plot and everything like that. And so 3 hours, that's all I made it on the way up. On the way back, I probably listened to an hour and a half. So I'm happy to tell you guys I only have about 16 hours left. So a pretty big portion left of the book. Very, didn't make a huge dent. But listen to a lot of podcasts, music, a little bit of dubstep, going through Wyoming, headbanging. Not much on the eastern part of Wyoming. It's a pretty straight shot, not too exciting. And then Montana, you start getting some mountains. I feel stupid. I didn't realize this, that Montana, the Rockies go up there as well, but I didn't realize that Yellowstone was right as close as well. Either way, the drive in Montana was, fairly pleasant. Got to see a lot of the mountains around. It's a lot more, it looks fairly similar to Wyoming, but I think the further north you get, maybe the more animals there are, or wildlife, or like larger wild. I don't know. Like in Wyoming, maybe I saw some deer on the road, but in Montana, driving through, there was a bear that had been hit, and like the wardens or whatever the game wardens, whoever picks up the roadkill, were there dealing with it. And I was like, whoa, I don't think I've ever seen a bear on the side of the road, like on the side of the highway, that had been hit. But I guess, the more remote areas you get, in certain areas where there are more bears, is popular, plural. The more bears you see, you're getting on the edge of the country. You're getting in the peripherals, where that wildlife is the main source, the higher population. So anyways, that was wild to see that. I didn't see any buffalo or bison. I saw some like wooden carved out ones, but just a dead bear and some deer for sure. And anyways, drove into Bozeman, which is pretty cool because it's kind of like surrounded by mountains. Out here in Denver, it's very much just, it's not very much, it just is west. You see the mountains on the west. There's nothing east. But out in Bozeman, it's kind of surrounded by like a range of mountains, and they're kind of all over. So it's kind of cool to be able to see scenery in a 360 POV. But I got up there. I ended up staying in Belgrade, which is about 15-20 minutes from Bozeman. It's kind of where I think airport is. Stayed there because it was cheaper. It's very expensive in Bozeman. I think apparently a lot of rich, wealthy folks are moving out there as like a place to have their second, third, fourth home, whatever. And to those rich people, I say, cut it out. It was, I spent $1,000 on an Airbnb for the week, which that ain't nothing. It was, took a hit on that one. But either way, I had to work while I was up there, so I just had to bite the bullet on that. Stayed in Belgrade. Monday was Labor Day. I think that's when I shot the podcast last week. Didn't do anything on that day. Most stuff was closed down. Got all my grocery shopping done in a little place called Albertsons, a little cute, grocery store. Looked like a chain. It's probably equivalent to, I would say like like a nice Kroger, which is an East Coast thing. A nice King. I don't know if I've been in like a nice King Super, but one of those. And Tuesday was the first day I went out. They had an open mic at the club at Last Best Comedy, and let me tell you that I'm gonna tell you guys something unbelievable. It's like a 75-person basement room. It's a very cool vibe club setup, and it was sold out. I think it's like the first week that Montana State or whatever the college is there. I think it's Montana State was back in class, and it was packed out. And I mean, it just felt like I probably got a new tape from the open mic. I mean, it was like new talent night. If you're in Colorado or in Denver, familiar with the Comedy Works, like new talent or open mic, whatever you want to call it. It was wild. It was like very, very good. People were into it. It was exciting. It was a cool first thing to do. So did that on Tuesday. Went to another open mic on Wednesday. I was busier than I was hoping to be. Obviously, with like just working throughout the day, I didn't really have time to explore, which was a bit of a bummer. But Thursday, did my first show. I got out to meet some of the comics and some of the people. Did a show at a place called Live from the Divide, which was like a half mile from the club. Very cool little. I guess they do live music there, but it was like a very cool backdrop and stage, and then like 3 or 4 rows of pews, and it probably would have. I mean, you probably would be lucky to squeeze 50 people in there. And they said it was their first time doing comedy, but they do a lot of live music there, which is interesting because it's like a very intimate room where, I mean, I'm not good with spacing, but it was quote unquote a theater, but 40 to 50 people in there, very intimate space. So it felt more like not a theater, just a place with a nice stage and a small. Either way, that was a fun time, fun way to start out the festival. It was the first day of the festival there, so that was Thursday, and then I wanted to hang out way more than I was able to, but just with work, I had to kind of balance and be like, all right, I've got to work, I've got to have some energy for work, and then for these shows, and then also I have a 10-hour drive back home on Sunday morning. So I was like, trying to stay balanced there. But it was nice to kind of stay in a routine a little bit. I went up there, went grocery shopping, had a kitchen, was able to eat, super healthy. I was also able to run a couple times just where I was. There was like some neighborhoods, some running trails around, which was nice. And I think that's super important. I've probably talked about it before, but whenever you're traveling, your body feels out of whack, whether you're in a car for 10 hours, whether you're on a flight. A lot of times that kind of like messes your body up. And it can be very easy to just be like, well, I'm tired or I'm lethargic or whatever the case is. I'm not going to exercise. I'm going to get the quick, unhealthy meal. And then that just kind of exacerbates your feeling of not feeling well. And, it's still easy to feel a little out of whack when you're going up there. Like I felt a little out of sorts from the long drive and maybe trying to catch up on sleep, being in a new bed, being in a new environment. But being in a routine of some sort helps you stay as close as you can to being a normal person. But so that was the show on Thursday, Live from the Divide. Ended around 9:30, and I just drove back to Belgrade, picked up some mozzarella cheese slices and tomato, a little basil, a little balsamic vinegar. Put that together, made whatever those are called. Pretty good. Had a lot of those over the week, throughout the week. Was not able, I'll tell you this too, and this is something I really got to nail down because especially when I'm traveling, I did it in the Midwest a couple weeks ago when I was going through some shows there, but I'm eating very healthy and I'm sticking with it. But as I'm going on these on the road and stuff, when I'm driving 10 hours, like on the drive up to Montana and back, I barely ate anything. I kind of was just like, I just won't eat. And then, I'll have dinner when I get to wherever I'm going. And then, dinner I'll eat and it's like, what, 500 calories? And I start adding up these days on the road where I'm kind of like closer to that than, a regular day of eating. And I'm like, man, I need to get some calories in me. I'm a skinny boy, okay? And that's when I'm eating normal. And when I'm not eating normal, I'm like, what's less than skinny? Scary is what it is, okay? Nobody wants to see it. I don't want to see it. I don't want to get to scary. So I need to figure out a way to get, rich calories in, even if I'm driving and it's tough to like get a lot in me. Like, what options can I bring with me that are just calorie dense? Whatever I got to have to kind of fill that, just so I don't get behind the eight ball. Because it can be, even if I do eat a lot, if I'm just eating like, ground beef, vegetables, peanut butter, apples, veggies, it's tough to eat in a surplus. It's very easy to eat less than you're supposed to eat. So some days that I eat less, maybe the next day or whatever, I don't know that it's the best diet advice. I'm not even sure actually if you're supposed to try to make it up like it's some sort of math equation. But if you're not eating much one day, it does make sense to maybe the next day try to get a little bit more just to be sure you're getting at least the average amount. Again, I'm going off on a tangent about a topic I know nothing about, which, you know what? I do that quite a bit. But I feel like I've quartered myself into a place where it's over my head and I don't know how to BS through it. So you guys get it. You got to just be careful with the diet. Make sure I'm eating enough. But so Thursday, I stopped. I said that was the first day of the fest, live from the Divide, cool little small venue. Friday, I worked throughout the day, and then as soon as I finished the day, I met up with a local comic who drove. I was doing a gig, or the show that I was doing with a couple others from the festival. It was in Helena, which is the capital of Montana, and it was like an hour and a half away. So it wasn't. They did an out-of-town show each day and then had multiple shows like in Bozeman, which was pretty cool. I think the first day, I wasn't on this show, but I think the first day on Thursday, they did a show in Townsend, which I think is 30 to 45 minutes from Bozeman. On Friday, I did that show in Helena. And then the last day of the festival, Saturday, some comics did a show in Butte. But Friday, yeah, my show was in Helena. I drove up there with a couple local comics and yucked it up on the drive there. Talked a bunch of comedy. Love talking comedy. Love breaking it down. I mean, this is a lot of people I feel like I talk to when you're breaking it down, they're like, we don't want to, I mean, if they're not comics, they definitely don't want to hear about it. But some comics, it's funny that they're like, I'm not interested in talking inside baseball. But plenty are willing and excited to talk about it as well. And I always enjoy those conversations, talking about just jokes, joke structure, starting out with comedy, how you grow and learn and build and fail a lot. But very nice people, local comics, like I said. They do stand-up and improv. But the guy who was driving, he was driving up. He was going to do a guest spot. We get up to Helena. The venue is like a 75-person theater, like a community theater. Very nice. Very nice theater. My experience with these like community theaters, that especially in towns or cities that are like 100,000 or less, they're so nice. They're literally just top of the line equipment. I mean, just very, very nice setups. And it's cool because, especially in smaller areas, they're like very available to rent and available as far as just scheduling. Like if you're in a bigger city or whatever, you might hit them up and be like, hey, in 6 months, I'm coming through to do this. And they're like, all right, that'll be $2,000 to rent and we're not available. So you can't rent it. But this place was very cool. It was like the Helena Playwright Theater, I think it was called. Got to do a 10-minute spot there. And yeah, very fun show there as well. Don't really have any details too much about the show. Did the show, or did my spot. Watched a couple other comics do their spot. And then an improv team went on before the stand-up headliner was going after them. And because we were an hour and a half outside of the city, we started driving back, like after we had finished. So we drove back, got back at like 10, and I was like, I'm 100 years old. I'm going to go home instead of go hang out. Which again, I mean, I felt aged there. I was like, again, in a routine. I was eating healthy, and I was trying to get solid sleep. And I was still like, 10:15 p.m., I better get home right now or I'm going to be dead tomorrow. So that was Friday night. I got home. Honestly, I was like, I want to get good sleep tonight to then be able to spend like the whole day Saturday because I wasn't working and just hang out, do the activities, do the shows, and then, get ready to drive back on Sunday. But Saturday, we had like a group activity. We did pickleball. First time playing pickleball. Very fun. I mean, it's gaining a lot of traction. A lot of people talk about it. It's a very fun thing that people do. I'd never done it before though. And I'm surprised it like just got popular more recently because it just feels like something that with tennis, with wiffle ball, with kind of just the whole thing, I'm surprised it hasn't been around for a long time. Maybe it wasn't invented until very recently. Maybe that's why, but I'm surprised it wasn't invented before that. But we did that. We got up at like 11, met with a bunch of the comics in Bozeman and played. If you're not familiar, it's basically a wiffle ball and then paddles, and then it's like a miniature tennis court. And then there's a bunch of rules that I, learned for the first time because I'd never played before. But a lot more rules than I figured. It was like you serve it kind of like, or I guess exactly like tennis. But then there's an area called the kitchen, which is like close to the net, and you can't hit it in the kitchen until you hit it a couple times in a row. And for the first volley, it has to bounce once before you hit it, and then after it was. I'm explaining it like this is calculus. It wasn't that complicated, but I didn't know any of the rules, so I thought it was just like keep it in the lines, hit it back and forth. Kind of like ping pong, I guess. Which in a lot of ways it was like ping pong. You know what? I take all that back. It was very simple. It was a very simple sport. You guys should try it out. If anybody wants to play pickleball here in Denver, let me know. I'd like to. That'd be a good way to get some movement and exercise, and it's an easily accessible and playable game for pretty much everybody. So let me know if you guys who wants to play pickleball. I am down to play some. But we did that Saturday morning. Here's something that blew my mind. And I don't know, also tell me if you guys have ever seen this. I've never seen this before in my life, even in like really small areas. But in Bozeman, I noticed this. In Belgrade, where I stayed, and in Bozeman, in the neighborhoods, and they weren't like, these were like the neighborhoods like literally a quarter mile from the main street. So it's not a huge city, but also it's like, this isn't population 5 people. These are the neighborhoods right in the city. No stop signs. I mean, there were a couple places, like the main street and a couple places would have stop signs, but in the neighborhoods where it's literally like intersection after intersection after intersection, 0 stop signs. I was like, what is this? It's like, what is happening? What are the rules? We didn't take this in driver school. They didn't say when you go out to Montana, you're not going to know if you're going to need to stop or not. And I was like, people are surely T-boning each other and like fender bend, just hitting each other all the time. Who would be at fault if there's no stop sign? It blew my mind. And it was actually kind of scary because if you can imagine, like in Denver, it was like if you're in Cap Hill and just every intersection there's no stop sign or no stop. I mean, there's no stoplight, no stop sign, no indication of who can go, who needs to wait. And also like in neighborhood spots like that, people are parallel parked a lot, which kind of blocks your vision to see those people coming from your left and your right. And so I was, I felt like an old I felt a little bit like an old man there, going through and being like, there needs to be some rules here. We can't just be a lawless country, There needs to be law and order with these stop signs. But that was a very interesting thing that I did not know about. If you guys know why they do that, if you guys know why Montana does not have stop signs for some reason, I would love to know. Yeah, that kind of blew my mind a little bit. But we played pickleball for a couple hours. Then I went back, took a shower, got ready for the shows that night. Went back, met some people up for a quick lunch. Had a nice green salad with salmon. One of 2 meals that I purchased outside of cooking from home, because at that point, I mean, I was not eating like. I was like, I have to get some cal. I'm like a lot of days into not eating that much. I need to eat. Because I also ruined a pork tenderloin in my crock pot. I brought my crock pot. I pretty much brought all the essentials. I brought a lot of stuff to be able to work comfortably. Brought my crock pot, threw a pork tenderloin in there on low, 6 hours. I mean, it was done. Burnt city, okay? One, I made the mistake. I didn't put any water in there. It was probably the main mistake. But 6 hours on low, I thought it was usually like 4 hours on high, 6 to 8 hours on low. I was wrong. I tried to eat it. I ate some of it. I did. Wasn't good. All the rest went to waste. And that was a pretty substantial meat source that I was planning on using for a couple days. So, I just starved for the next couple days. No, I didn't do that. I got a lot of tomatoes and mozzarella. I'm bouncing around all over the place here, guys. I'm trying to go through my experience in Montana, but part of me is like, is it boring if I'm just doing 30 minutes of just like, here's my day-to-day in Montana, or do I need to sprinkle some funny stuff in there? So I was like, pivot to crockpot. And then I said that, and I was like, not funny. Pivot back to the story. So here we are, back to the story. Montana, last day in Montana, Saturday, last day of the festival. Did the pickleball, went and ate lunch, and then I had some early shows. Had a show at the club at 5, and a show after that at 6. So the show at 5, 5 o'clock is pretty early. So you wonder, you go, how well attended will it be? I mean, it wasn't sold out, but there was probably 25 people there for the 5 o'clock show, which, to be honest, still very good. I mean, like I said, it probably fills out about 70 people. It's a downstairs basement room, low ceilings, tight space. And then the people are there to laugh. They're there to have a good time. So I closed that show out. So it was closer to 6 o'clock, and had a great time. It was super fun. Felt good about that set. Also, what I did, I filmed all my sets on my camera. I did a couple different things. So I filmed it on my phone, which I'm filming this on. I made 2 changes. One, I filmed everything in 4K, which I haven't done in the past because my old laptop couldn't even support 4K. So I couldn't even like edit and sync things together on my laptop. But now that I have the new MacBook, It does. So I've switched over to that, which I'm excited about. Maybe, what does it matter? I'm not even, most of these videos are, I'm just like shooting them and going, that was okay. And then it's just in my phone now, or I delete it. I put it on my laptop, then I delete it. But I did it. It looks better. You're able to zoom in a little bit better and keep the quality obviously a little bit more. So that's one change. And then a second change, I've been using my wireless mic that I've talked about before, where it's like the big circular thing, so it's kind of in the way. And I've tried different positioning, whether I've put it like right at my neck, kind of on the inside of my shirt, which has been a little too loud capturing my voice. I've also tried putting it like not on my body, like just loose somewhere, and that doesn't pick up my voice or the performer's voice very well. So I bought multiple shirts, I think I've said this in the past, that have a pocket protector, and I just slipped it in the pocket protector, which then, it protrudes out a little bit, but then I just put a jacket on, and the jacket covers it so you can't see. And I guess it was my first time trying that, because in my head, I was like, that's probably going to muffle the sound too much. But I was wrong, and I'm glad, because I can do that. It captures my voice very clearly, and also it gets the audience's laughter way better than I figured. Like, actually very good. Very well. Very, very goodly. Very welly. It captures the audience laughs nicely, crisply. My brain just spiraled into a death right there. You guys get it. Sounds good for me and for the audience. So I recorded all the shows, and all of them were like super nice venues. It was 3 theaters and 1 was the club. So all very cool venues. Did that at 5, then had to run right over to the Rialto Theater for the 6 o'clock show, which was, again, very cool venue, theater on the main strip. It was like a double level, so like people sitting in front of you, and then there's an upper level as well. It wasn't, it's not like a 500-seat theater where you're thinking like, holy cow, 2 levels. It was like an intimate double level, or a more intimate. It wasn't as small as the first theater that I mentioned on Thursday, but there was probably seating for like 100 people on the bottom floor level, and then it like did a C at the top. It like wrapped around, and I mean, there's a bunch of standing space there, but basically all the seats they had were just up against the like balcony, whatever, the front portion, the fence. I don't know, it's weird to say fence, but like it wasn't just open where they could walk off the balcony, obviously. So with that seating, you could probably seat 30 to 40. And I think that was, or 20 to 30 maybe. That was mostly full at the top with people against the fenced portion. And then the bottom, there's probably 20 or 30. So there's probably 50 people in a theater that had capacity of 130 to 150. I'm really bad at guesstimating numbers in theaters, but that's my best guess at it. They were there to laugh. They had a show at 6, 8, and 10, so I wondered, especially with a smaller population city, like how that would work out if, I was like, maybe nobody shows up. But there was probably 40-ish, if not more people. They were there to have a good time. It was a lot of fun. All the shows were great. I mean, I feel like a lot of the festivals I've been to recently, this one, the one in Tulsa, the one in Erie, great I mean, just honestly, just super well organized, funny comics, people who come out to watch shows that want to see comedy and are excited. It was very fun. So I was very excited to be a part of that. All the people, staff, everything, super, super nice people. And it was also cool, too, because I got to do 4 shows, which is the most I've ever done during a festival. Usually it's like 2, 3 would be like the high end. And I've done some where it's just one spot. You travel out somewhere and do one spot. But not only was it 4 spots, it was 2 10-minute spots and 2 15-minute spots. So much longer opportunities on stage than usual as well. So that was very exciting. That happened, like I said, did the 5 and 6 o'clock, and then basically just hung out for a little bit after that. Went to a local bar and watched UFC for the first time in a long time. Izzy A. Adesanya, I think his name is, fought and lost to Steve Strickland. There's only a couple of people. I haven't followed UFC since like being in college. Literally back when it was on like Spike TV. And I was kind of into it at that point. I remember in my head, I was at college at that point, and we had like, it was me and 3 other roommates, and we had like one set of 10-pound dumbbells, and I would just do bicep curls and watch like fights on repeat, and just in my head be like, yeah, I could do that. Yeah, I could do a spinning back kick as I do 8 reps to failure with this 10-pound dumbbell. Like, yeah, I could fight in the flyweight division, 125. Be like, I'll buzz my head, get a tattoo on my chest, and probably be like world champion. That's all there is to it, right? It's funny how naive you are as just in life in general, but especially as you're younger. You're like, I'm invincible. I've never been in a fight, but certainly I would win all the fights if I were in them, right? But the fact of the matter is, never was in a fight. There's no way I would probably be great at fighting. I'm a much better runner, much better flight than fight kind of guy. Only altercation I got to in college was my 2 roommates went at it one night. I went to break it up. One of them pushed me. I tripped over that 10-pound dumbbell, fell on my face. And nothing worse than losing a fight you're not even a part of, It felt like an L. I didn't get punched in the face, but it felt like a metaphorical punch to the face, which sometimes worse, It's like I would like the physical pain. At least then I could not be as embarrassed as to why I feel this much shame. But, I was just trying to be the peacekeeper, the peacemaker. That was in college when we would play beer pong. And we just took the laundry door off of the laundry room door off, just took it off, and then just laid it down on the counter and made like our beer pong table. That was, I don't even think we got charged for that, but that table was soaked with water and beer, and I feel bad about that now that I say it out loud. So don't do that, college kids out there who are disrespecting their landlord's stuff. I've only got a couple more minutes here probably, but I'll end by talking about a couple things. I'm going to try to be better at maybe just like talking about bits that I'm working on and just ramble on it and maybe see if anything I can get anything from it, which I'll probably do here. But I also want to mention, and I might have to just do this next time, I'm kind of dabbling with a couple books right now. But I started reading this book called The 12th Planet, which is basically like an alternate theory of how we arrived here as humans. And it's a lot, it goes back into like Sumerian culture, like I think the first culture that we have that had like writing a language that we've deciphered. But them all kind of pointing to like the Greek gods, and there's like a bunch of similarities that kind of maybe make it seem like maybe aliens kind of came down here and either created us or engineered us or something. I don't know. But I haven't gotten all the way through. But that's what it seems like it's talking about. And it's just very interesting. Whether it's true or not, it's an interesting theory. And the guy who wrote it, I think, grew up, I think he's Jewish, grew up in Hebrew school and was very interested at connecting the dots between the Bible and like a lot of these cultures that have, where where they talk about like what we think as mythological gods and kind of connecting the dots to be like maybe they were real. So I'll save that for later because I feel like, just saying that 1 minute blurb, everybody's gonna be like, wow, Ben, you've gone off the deep end. You're just reading conspiracy theory books. Maybe I am, okay? Never forget the conspiracy theories. Anyways, I tried to write a little bit. I was trying to stay in the routine of writing a little bit while I was in Montana, and I was writing about haunted houses. That was the topic. I said it's coming up on Halloween here. Let's get some haunted houses material, and didn't get. I don't know that it's very good, but I was trying to write on kind of the topic of, I think it's all these ghost shows where they're like chasing ghosts. They never catch a ghost, and everybody, a lot of people make fun of that because they're like, you've made 20 seasons and you've never caught it. It's like Bigfoot series, it's like you keep chasing Bigfoot. You've never found a Bigfoot. How are people still watching this? And the angle that I was trying to think of, and it's just silly, dumb stuff, but I was like, maybe they have caught a ghost, but maybe they like don't, maybe they don't show it because then the show would end because they caught a ghost, but also maybe it's just like a bigger conspiracy because if they caught a ghost, if we knew ghosts existed, that would destroy, that would level our society. That would destroy your realtor. Better find a new job. Good luck. Good luck selling a house when people know that they're ghosts. And as I said all this out loud, I was trying to come up with funny stuff. Obviously, I couldn't think of anything funny, but I was also realizing, maybe it's not that. I was just trying to write about that concept. I got to figure out how to get into that as a topic. But I do think it's funny, like if that were the reality, how difficult it would be to sell a house. If just, a lot of times people ask, was anybody killed in this house? And realtors, I think they have to like disclose that information. But just how much tougher of a job it would be if you had to be like, there's a demon downstairs. Be like, yes, this house is $1 million. Yes, there's a demon, but they said they'd include the refrigerator. And you know what? I think that is cooler than the ghost in the basement. I wonder if Casper, using Casper's name, if that would provide any, if that's like a reference people would get. I don't know. I really, I thought I would really ramble and have some funny natural things that would come out. And sometimes they just don't. I feel like I started this podcast out the first 3 minutes. I was like, I'm zinging and zanging. And then I got about halfway into that 9/11 stuff, and I was like, I don't know how to pivot out of this. And then I was like, let's talk about Montana. Nothing that funny, just informative. And I was like, let's end with a bang. And I think we are ending with a bang. It's not the bang type that I wanted, but it's kind of like that wasn't a great bang, you guys get it. But I'm going to end there. Thank you guys if you made it all the way through. Let me know a couple things. Let me know if you're a comic, what are you writing on right now? Number 2, have you ever been to Montana? And do you know about the stop sign thing? And number 3, ask me a question. Tell me something I should talk about on here. If you made it all the way to this, leave a comment. Let me know. But I'll leave it there. Thank you guys so much for listening. Appreciate you guys tuning in. And I'll see you guys again next week.